Shayo, welcome to the stage. So what I will do is I will make this into a very interactive panel as opposed to question and answers. We're going to have conversations and dive deep. We're supposed to talk about innovations, challenges, and future trends in this evolving Nigerian data center landscape. But I want to do something slightly different. I really want to focus on the trends and the innovation that comes from the trends that we all see and the opportunities around those trends. And I want to address challenges and the way we should be thinking about those challenges, innovations that should come out of the way we collaborate and the way we do work and the way we engage our customers around those challenges. So before we get going, it will be worthwhile for the panelists to talk about themselves, talk about their companies. I will always be batting last as a proper host. So Tunde, can I get started with you?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ayotunde Koka, the CEO for Open Access Data Centers. I run the business across Africa. We're part of the WIOC group. We've been building across the continent. We have a flagship data center here in Lagos, which is also the Equino landing station. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Krish, head the West African region for Africa Data Centers, and ADC is part of a major group called CashTech. We operate around 32 countries. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Lars Johannesson, heading up Rack Center Nigeria. Not a stranger in Northern Nigeria, not a continent. Been around working in the telecom industry for approximately 20 plus years, continuing to tech skilling a lot of stuff in Nigeria and the rest of the continent, and now, since January, doing Rack Center. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oluwaseyi Oshadami. I am the Director of Solutions for West Africa for Main One, an Equinix company. And we just got fully integrated, I think 2 days ago. So we operate data center in West Africa. Thank you.
Perfect. My name is Johnson Agobora. I think I've already been introduced. I'm the MD of Kasi Cloud. We build data centers. Our flagship data center will commence operations first half of next year. So without wasting time, private cloud and public cloud seem to be the opportunity, right? I'd love to get your take, all of us, on private cloud and public cloud, especially as enterprises move from colo primary to consumption of private clouds, and then your take on emergence of public cloud, especially West Africa as a cloud region. Tunde, can we start with you?
Yeah, I'll speak from the point of view of an ex-CIO, and I used to be a CIO for a group CIO for Axis Bank, and the advent of cloud sort of started just before that, and we've been moving from on-prem. We've been moving from on-prem to cloud to co-location. That was the first thing. Then you get from co-location also adopting cloud with sometimes some form of on-prem. But what do you move to cloud? And it depends on the maturity of cloud, so on. Issues around. This is cutting in and out, I think. Okay, hopefully this is okay there. But what's been happening is that migration has been taking place over time. Less critical workloads have been moving into public cloud or private cloud. And then you say, okay, what about private cloud? Where does it sit in? And there are definitions for private cloud, which could be your own cloud infrastructure or whatever in a colocation facility, or sometimes actually also in on-prem. And then you find sort of less critical facilities going to public cloud. What's been emerging generally and also across Africa and here is a combination of all of those. Initially with usually, productivity tools, mail, so on. And then you start finding, if you use a bank, for instance, some other workloads like, treasury systems start to move into the cloud. And that's been happening over the last 10 years or so, actually. I remember saying around about 3 years ago that within 5 years, you'll have an announcement that a bank will choose to run their core banking platform from the public cloud. The restrictions they have right now, actually partly with the regulators, they say, well, where's your data actually going to be held? And so they say, well, we don't know. But when you actually have the cloud, public cloud, clearly in the same jurisdiction as a regulating body, then there's a lot more confidence to move that workload into public cloud. Now, in banking, once that happens, that's going to be a significant push for public cloud. And for practical reasons, some aspects of convenience, cost, and stuff like that, you will still continue to find some aspects of private cloud. But then there are two sides to public cloud. You have local cloud companies and you have international cloud companies. You're also starting to see a hybrid of that. And it's not unusual. I remember going to see a data center at Tier Point in the US, and we're talking about this. They run some of the public cloud services. They have their own private cloud services, and they say they have a nice balance between both. And it's, they sell both, they use both, and it works out well. So that's kind of pattern I see emerging. But you see, the public cloud really at the scale won't happen until we start having the right kind of data centers coming in that you're doing, and lots of people here are starting to bring in on stream.
So, Krish, can you dive a little bit deeper for us? How are you seeing enterprises migrating from co-location to private cloud? Public cloud is already being consumed. They need to localize here, and there are adjustments in the way we build data centers.
The way things are happening in this part of the world, we all know this, correct? One, of course, one core issue is people moving into cloud. Why? Okay, of course, if you look at the all 54 countries, we are suffering from one problem. That is a currency issue, correct? So how much you are going to invest onto the hardwares, and how frequent you are going to refurbish these things, correct? Whether it's a CapEx, whether it is a bank, or even it's a small scale industry, this is a serious issue, and there's no way to get back into the old rates of dollars. Let's see, even Naira or even Ghana cedis or whatever is that. So that is one key issue people are really looking at towards a private cloud or a public cloud. Now, another point to be looked at is that the local regulations, maybe from NDPC, so which is clearly mandating that data has to be domiciled within the country borders. So how practical is that? Now, how can we enforce it? Because from the data center perspective, it's a good thing to happen because it boosts the business of the data center, correct? And on the customer side, there are multiple benefits. One minimizes the cybersecurity, the cyber threats rather, I put it that way. And of course, local currency payments. So some of those things really helps the local customers. So I see a good potential happening but now whether it is going to be a local cloud player or a global player coming and putting that infrastructure in Nigeria, or in any of the African countries, or what is their own plans? Because with Nigeria or Ghana or Kenya coming out with the, the data domiciliation policies, if they implement it the way India has implemented it, then it is not a gateway project, it has to be a complete domiciliation. So the size or the magnitude of those kind of projects goes up in a much better way. So which of course in line with the data center, projections what we are talking about.
Indeed, indeed. Lars, Rack Center has been at the forefront of enterprise collocation, and I need to recognize my dear friend and the gentleman to my left, and the days of visiting him from the 2017, 2018, going way back. You're driving Rack Center, and you have significant development and deployment underway. How do you see the emerging opportunity in private and public cloud?
Thanks, Johnson. And yeah, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that worked at Rack Center and established what we have today, and I'm very proud of that and taking that legacy further. When I look at cloudification, I don't particularly, differentiate, private, hybrid, there are nice wordings. What I want from Nigeria, I want from the rest of the continent is that we cloudify more and faster. And I will be super happy representing this industry of having a cloud region in Western Africa as soon as possible. That will be awesome for all of us. The use cases are slightly different, that's true, and I respect all of them. What I want is more people to participate, more enterprise to participate in this cloudified economy. Then we can debate what is private, hybrid, and public. That's all good. And I do think there's still a couple of things that we need to do. To make that happen, it's kind of not just a data center to drive this, is maybe the reason why we're all in this room, because this will not happen unless all things come in line. That means there's public, it's private enterprises, it's public administration, it is the peering, the ISPs, the carriers. That's the only way we're going to do it and drive this forward. So yeah, in terms of private, public, no big comments from my side. I do think, though, I'm listening to a lot of the plans of the fiber deployment in Nigeria. Coming from, I'm also a very big fan of mobile broadband. I do think that this continent is where mobile broadband will drive, essentially, cloudification for a lot of small and medium enterprises, and also for a lot of people today excluded from the whole cloud environment. And I think if we, as an industry, and also as corporate citizens here in Nigeria, could make sure that we embed all the people today that are sitting on a 2G subscription, essentially excluded from the whole digitized journey. If we could bring in 30% of those, which is a substantial amount of people in all regions of Nigeria, we will cloudify faster and better and have a way more inclusive economy. And I do believe that is actually the essence of private, public, or hybrid. So that's my take on it.
Thank you so much, Lars. It's really insightful. I think we'll come back to scaling of the cloud a little bit later. Shayo, you're a product guy. You've pioneered private cloud in many ways, moving enterprises, not just to co-location, but to private cloud. Can you give us a sense of where you guys are in terms of readiness for cloud scaling, both private and public?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Yes, when we developed the data center business, I think then our focus was to provide the infrastructure that is required to enable enterprise customer to run their businesses efficiently. Now, if you look at how data center business evolved, the first part is convincing customers in a new market why they need to move from on-prem to off-prem, putting their infrastructure in a data center. Now, once you overcome that, then the next part of the convincing is why they need to take private cloud, for example, or even a public cloud run by a private company that sits in country. Because at the end of the day, it's all about how you help them optimize their cost. Because for co-location, they need to still buy the hardware, and there will be unused resources before the devices go end of life, and they might not get the full benefit, but they would have to incur the total CAPEX and OPEX of operating that device, which the cloud environment helps eliminate. And then you can get economic of scale and then help aggregate more customers, which is efficient for the use of the facility, the data center, and also for the use of the enterprise customers as well. In terms of our readiness for the cloud and the next level of innovation, I think key thing is we expect that at some point we will see the big players coming into the country, and we're excited to see that Lagos is becoming an interesting location for the big players. So it means that we're doing something right in the market. And once we start having the big players coming, I expect there to be that shift in terms of how the enterprise customer consume their services, especially for the ones who use those private cloud solutions. Some of them might have to migrate to some of those public cloud solutions that are in country. But at the end of the day, when we compare that with what happens in developed market, you still see that there's still space for everyone, because you see different kind of model, the hybrid cloud model, multi-cloud model, depending on how the enterprise wants to run their services. But the beauty, I think, is the fact that the ecosystem gets to benefit from it, which I think that's why we're all here, enabling the ecosystem to get the benefit of all.
Indeed. I think, let me give my perspective. Looking at the impact of cloud, everywhere cloud has really emerged as scale. Nigeria as a premier, a large-scale economy will benefit tremendously. I think the panelists have already highlighted the benefits of going to cloud, what it does for the enterprises. I think what it does for the economy is just tremendous. What it does for the small and medium enterprises, not just for the large enterprises, is tremendous. I've seen reports that, older reports that point to contribution of over 30 trillion naira to the economy by 2033 or so, or even sooner. That is tremendous. We need it. So for me, all of the work we are doing here on the panel leads to really accelerating cloud adoption here. So, and in the cloud, we think about compute, moving your computers up there. And we think of your data storage up there. But very few of us talk about networking. After all, we're at NGP, right? Mm-hmm. So it's one of those areas that must evolve, right? We have fundamental issues on connectivity, but we have tremendous good news, you know, with the landing of Equiano and to Africa and many more to come. Can you touch on the aspects of connectivity that enhances reliability, that enhances migration to this cloud to come? Tunde.
Yes. One of the things I would see as a key, we've got the fundamentals of what we're doing here with pairing, interconnect, internet exchanges, and all of that, bringing communities of carriers and connectivity providers, ISPs, and everybody into carrier-neutral environments and creating vibrant ecosystems, and so on, is absolutely essential. Okay, and that gives you connectivity through to the eyeballs and the efficiencies that come with it and so on. So we need to keep this really, really going and vibrant and growing to keep that going. So I think by now that's given. A few years ago, we'd have been talking about developing it, but we've got solid ecosystems around here, especially in Lagos right now. You'll see some more emerging around about, say, Port Harcourt, Abuja in time. The other thing I found actually is that we've been able to pull together open access data center with also a sister company that provides open access wholesale connectivity. And where it comes to reaching out to the general enterprise or SMEs, a whole range of partners will ride over that infrastructure. We never go there. So you get this synergy of, it's what we call converged open digital infrastructure. And it pulls together the synergies between them. What happens is you then see that this actually gives data centers the resilience, right? The network resilience. Because if you have, say, access to multiple subsea cables, you have access to open access metros, so on. When something happens somewhere, you have lots of choices to restore, to provide restoration. And that's what, from what you said, builds a network resilient data center. So it takes it to a totally different level. And I see that that's now the transformation that we're bringing into any location that we have on the continent, actually. It's the same thing happening in Cape Town. It's the same thing happening right now in Joburg. Durban is really developing, and I see Lagos actually is developing in that way. So you'll increasingly see not only having vibrant ecosystems in carrier-neutral data centers, which will be absolutely key to the growth that we're going to see. You'll see another aspect to it, which is building network resilient data centers that gives underlying resilience. And you then start to see the emergence of carrier-neutral data centers clustering around network resilient data centers to provide an even larger, bigger ecosystem. And that's what you see emerging over the next 2 to 3 years around here.
Please, feel free to express yourselves. We'll come to you for questions, by the way. Krish, your thoughts?
We all here, build and operate data centers, correct? So let's look at this. We all have all the submarine cables present in our data center, and more or less all the regional and local ISPs present. Let's look at the traffic, what they are bringing into our data centers, correct? Predominantly, that traffic is, let me take in my own way, that is a Lagos traffic, correct? That is, we are talking about a traffic of maybe 27 or 30 million population, correct? Let's go into the first question of cloud. Okay, we have a local cloud, whether it be private or public. Okay, leave the enterprise part of it. If the cloud is hosted locally, and if there is an entertainment portal or some music or something is running on that, what is that driving the traffic into that? Is it going to be this 30 million or the remaining 180 million in Nigeria? What it cost to connect those 180 million into this network? Okay, if you look at statistics, we say that around 60% is connected to the network, but at what quality? What is the capacity? Can they even browse Google outside the city, the state capitals? So some of those fundamentals we need to go back, because all the 6 or 7 cables landing in Lagos, Lekki Coastal, now coming into Akwa Ibom, and maybe Bonny, does it make any change? So what change we can bring into the ecosystem to put this traffic onto the right networks and bring it back into the data centers? That is, we need to look at it. We are talking about, bringing the global hyperscalers. Why do they need to come into Nigeria? What is the benefit? Benefit is numbers at the end of the day. And can we provide that numbers? Or are we still going to talk a business case based on Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt? That is around 40 million population. If we are going to still talk about that, we are not reaching anywhere in another 5 years or 10 years, unless the ground, the fundamental is fixed. The fundamental is that, very simple, a person may be in a forest or in a paddy field, maybe in Kanu or Samfra, need to get the right internet access. That is the broadband definition, the defined broadband. Can he get it? The day we get that, then balance follows. Otherwise, it literally becomes a Lagos-based approach.
I hope our regulators are also paying attention. How do we connect the rest of Nigeria to the cloud and to the digital resources that we're all building to welcome into our data centers? Lars?
So the question is, how do we broaden, how do you leave this Lagos-focused business model, essentially? I mean, I bet, as all my peers here, we met the regulators, we talked to them, and there's no lack of, willing desire to spread out our wings and cover the whole nation, because it's required. It's required, necessary. Now, I think it's not the potential demand problem, it's a business case problem right now. And the pure economics around that one is challenged, okay? So we dig where we stand, and that means that we do our probably economics in Lagos, and then as we can penetrate, as we can embed more people, as I mentioned before, I think we can gradually expand our presence to include other regions as well. So I don't know whether that is an optimistic or a sad response from my side, but I think it's a bit of a migration perspective, how to do this over time, and it will take us time. This is a large country, is massive amount of people, is a massive amount of infrastructure needs to come in place, and more important so, how do you make sure that they are in a position to use the cloud in the right way? Then, when growth uptake happens, industry will follow, and trust me, Rack Center, if I can head up a couple of years further down the line, we will be in any state and the location, as probably my peers will be, as soon as the business case supports it. So, that's my take on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Lars. Shaya, you've been at the forefront of identifying connectivity as being integral to scaling data centers. What's your thought on where we're going with cloud adoption and accelerating cloud? We've talked about the underlying reliability or resilience that the network brings. We've talked about connecting the rest of us to that cloud. And Lars have spent time on making sure that the tributaries broadband is also accelerated and the right business model to really address the rest of the population. What are your thoughts on how all of this converges? The network, the compute, data storage. Please.
Thank you very much. For some of us that were here yesterday, when I did my presentation, I tried to find the relationship between broadband penetration and the growth of data center capacity. Still doing more research, but from that presentation, what it's clear to me is that there's a direct relationship, because the more the broadband penetration, you see that the more the data center capacity or IT load that are being consumed in those cities. I try to use a lot of cities as an example, Virginia, who is almost like 90-something% broadband penetration, and if you look at the data center capacity in those cities, you know that they're huge, and the more you have those broadband penetration, it means that the more you have people building data center because now the whole city is wired. And I think that's why Lagos State, for example, in Nigeria is benefiting a lot because you have the network almost in every key areas. You have multiple providers with those infrastructures that can help with the interconnection that are required for those high capacity link across data center. And that's why you have, I think, like 90% of all the data centers in Nigeria in Lagos. But what does that mean for us as a country? Sometimes I wish the universe can come together and everything just happen how it's supposed to be, but reality is that's not it. And we can take examples of smaller countries or similar countries that have to think of the building blocks. What are the key things that needs to happen before the next one happen, and how do we progress from there? And that's why it's exciting when you hear of all the new cables coming in, and with those huge capacity coming in. So it means that the high compute required to set up a node and connect it to the global presence has been established, right? Now the next phase is in the terrestrial. What do we need to do? Now Lagos makes it easy. You can build in Lagos, you have all the fiber wired, but does that end there? What happens to the young man in Maiduguri, for example? How does he benefit from that? And that's where we now start thinking, oh, we need to build more infrastructure. Our penetration rate is, I think, 46, going to about 50%. But if we think of the state of our digital infrastructure today as a country, maybe in 2019, South Africa was in that similar state, but a lot happened. The cloud came in, from the cloud investment coming in, then you know that, okay, I have enough subsea capacity going up, I have the cloud region in my country, then those key investment has been done right by someone else. So then I need to now focus on building access, building the distribution so that it can get to more people. And I feel that that's where we need to. Rack Center, OEDC, will not just focus on building all of our facilities in Lagos, because at the end of the day, to get people connected, you have to think of the entire population and how they have access to those infrastructure. And that's why, for example, like we are building in the South-South, because we know the cable is landing, right? And when that cable lands, what happens, right? How does it get to the community? You need to build, right? You need to build. I wish we didn't have to do that build, but then when you think of those investment and how people would gain the benefit and the value, so you realize that sometimes providers have to do a lot of heavy lifting, right? Just to make sure the users get the intended benefit. And I think we are there, but there's more to be done.
Indeed, thank you so much. Please show some love. I think you are all appropriate and to the point. I have one more in this trend side, and then we'll try to wrap it up and look at some of our challenges. I just flew in from San Jose. I was at the OCP, the Open Compute Platform Summit, seeing old friends, talking to some platform infrastructure companies. And in the past, we talked a lot about compute and networking and storage. So it's CPUs and DPUs. Today, I was overwhelmed because every conversation was AI. I felt I've been retransported into a different reality. And when I kept, leaving Lagos, coming back to Lagos, we really do not have AI in our vocabulary. And yet the world believes that's where everything is headed, right? And I will give you an example. In San Jose, meeting with a few friends, how do we model the weather? How do we apply some of those statistics, some of those data that come from modeling the weather? Well, in Nigeria, we can benefit from it directly, right? The data is readily available. So farmers count on, weather on when to plant, and they count on weather on when to harvest. So, and everything in between, right? That's nature, terroir, right? So it turns out that what we do matter to farming at scale, to subsistent farming. So AI is important to us, but we're not talking about it. So it's part of that future trend. Give me a sense of how each of you are thinking about AI. Is it too soon? Do we have to ready our infrastructure, our data centers differently to accommodate this rapid adoption of this technology? Tunde.
Yeah, this has kind of been brewing up for the last few years. But actually, AI, if I go back 35 years, Ford of Europe, we had an expert system team there. And what's been limiting, and that was AI, okay, bringing AI into technology. What's been limiting actually has been the capacity of technology to catch up with the human capacity to try and drive AI. And it's been catching up ever since. I remember I'll show my age now, 1990. If I don't know who know the pizza boxes, the Sun Microsystems, Sonos came up with 100 megabits per second, CPU speed and so on. And the guy who owned the data center, about the size of this room, thought, "Oh my God, my job's gone." But his job didn't go. Actually, it just transformed. That's what's happening now with so the technology, the whole ecosystems, the availability of data, the world access to a whole range of things. The speed of being able to compute it, to turn that around, not just the volume, but in the time, the CPU progressions I've had. We used to talk about heuristics, stuff like that. Now we have generative AI that brings another level of. So this thing has been evolving for a long time. So this last scale of evolution has kicked in the last few years. And the key thing is, and it takes time to build that infrastructure. So the key thing is to make sure that the infrastructure we're building is actually not only able to take the scale of cloud that's about to hit us in this country, which is true, which actually is also the feed into the compute for AI, and make sure that the infrastructure we build is AI ready for what it's worth. That means a lot of things. But that's actually actively what is happening now, where you look at the designs that are going. A key requirement is we've got to give flexibility to enable AI readiness, to have a mix between AI compute, cloud compute, both plus some aspects of enterprise and so on. So that's what we're doing now around here. You're all, everyone's into that conversation. And it's going to happen. There's something I use about how this scale is going to hit us and why it just is. There's something about Africa in particular. One, if we don't get the right infrastructure in place, then there's nowhere for the compute to go. So we all have to get that right infrastructure in place, here, wherever else in Africa. So that happens, and as the demand for AI goes and the infrastructure's available, then the need for that compute will follow it, okay? There's something else I speak to as well, capacity substitution, in that there isn't actually that much space available in Europe, right? When you want contiguous megawatts, it's not that available because of some planning rules and power issues that came off around about 2-3 years ago. It takes a good 2 to 3 years to recover from some of these things. So what do you do when you're optimizing your capacity and the kind of infrastructure is available elsewhere? You say, what's all this Africa compute doing here? Take it back out to Africa and let's receive some capacity. For what it's worth, I don't know if it's going to be, but I'm making that assertion that capacity substitution will happen as quickly as the next 12 to 24 months, right? You get those 2-year cycles, okay? So you see the uptake of capacity here from that substitution. The next thing is to say, okay, yes, we need AI compute, and we've got these AI-ready data centers, and we've got the ecosystems. I'm making, last talked about having the whole stack and layers and so on of the ecosystem, and we have that in place. It's going to happen. Finally, there's something I've talked about before about why Africa will be a key scale point for cloud. You see, most of consumption here in Africa, and especially in Nigeria, is what I call the sachet economy. People earn today to spend for tomorrow. Africa is a lot richer, or maybe turn it around, is not as poor, depending on your perspective, as people think. It's just not that visible. And that's why the mobile network operators and so on have been able to be successful at a scale nobody ever thought they would have been successful at. Because of that, it drives, like, this is probably one of the top 3 consuming countries for brandy, for instance, right? Because if you get that scale right, Nescafe comes in little sachets, people buy it. So it's a sachet economy. How do you turn the sachet economy into technology? It's cloud. Because once you get the, not just broadband penetration, now you have the broadband adoption, and the use cases and stuff like that start to exist. People consume it on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis. And if the business models and consumptive models and earning models tune very well into that, then the adoption of the scale of the population we have is beyond enterprises. It's going straight into small and medium enterprises. We have 40 million small and medium enterprises in this country, right? They are the consumptive engines for this sachet economy of compute. As soon as you plug into that with the cloud, with the technology at the end, you just watch the scale go up. And we've been having a chat about once we get these facilities in place, then we have the baseline requirements for hitting that tipping point. And I really do believe that scale will happen.
Thank you so much, Tunde. We come to you, Krish. AI, the promise of AI and the readiness.
Technology keep evolving. That's a part of it, correct? And we also evolve ourselves, whether we have it or not. We need to go with the bandwagon. We spoke about maybe 5G around 2 years back. We launched it in Lagos. We have 4G. We have everything in Nigeria, correct? But still my statement remains why it is Lagos-based. Correct. Technology is global. Adaptation of that still remains within us. Okay, yeah, we can create a base framework. Perfect. But the behavior, the data. Now let's go back to our own national data. We have NIMSI, we have BVN, we have passport issues, correct? How can we centralize these things and come up with things which we can make life easy for everybody? That's why technology is used. But can we do that? I don't really think at this moment we can do that because none of these data are practically available, or even if it is available, it is not in the right formats. So we need to go back again. One side, on a global level, the world is leaping. We, in this part of the world, we are struggling with the fundamentals because we are still, what we are trying to achieve or what we are trying to do, in my opinion, is that we are trying to follow the West blindfolded. That is my take. Because we need to, the 54 countries need to fix the fundamentals. Then we stand as one. If you stand Africa as one, then these things are the easiest thing to achieve. Now we are moving into AI, cloud, AI. Even it is going to get more complex as a couple of years more. So are we going to say the same thing after 3 years? Okay, now we forget 5G, we forget AI, we forget cloud. We are talking something else. So can we put these things in place first? then, partially you start adopting it. Then another issue comes in, okay, we are talking technology. What about the human capacity? Now, you spoke about, local cloud, that we are speaking about. We all are data center operators. Getting a good hand is the biggest challenge. You can deploy AI, no problem. You can go and get a hydrogen generator, no problem. Power issue is sorted. But who is going to manage it? So, if you do that 360 degree, we still have 90 or 95 degrees to go. Oh, sorry, I mean to say, at least 90% to go further. So let's adopt the technology in the right way. Whatever we can bite, let's bite. Balance, let's push forward, and see how best we can build that capacity to get that global standards.
Indeed, the opportunity is there, but let's begin to take 4 steps. Thanks, Dr. Krish. Lars, please feel free to show some love here. Lars, you're completing a fairly scaled environment. Are you ready for AI?
Yes, we are.
Please tell us more.
Short and crisp answer, yes. I mean, I feel extremely proud of, on one side, standing on the operational legacy rec center, but also being able to now officially launch the new build of Lagos #2, which is hyperscaler, and I call it AI ready. So there's a couple of takes on this AI story. One is the pure infrastructure, the operational capability. The team on the ground can take care of it. We all probably among us on this scene, we share, classical 3, 4, 5, 6 kW per rack. We foresee scenario 10, 20. All that we can take care of. And I think we are in a beneficial situation, actually, in this continent, Nigeria, that we will eventually leverage all the engineering or operational experience that comes from other countries that are a couple of years ahead of us. We will leapfrog that expansion. We will embed it into our way of working. So I'm not concerned from an operational perspective to take care of AI, not at all. We are very suitable to do that here. It also raises a couple of questions, what AI means. AI is power consumption and energy, and all of us can agree that our data center and cloudification, digitalization is an energy-intensive business. And that begs the question also what it means for us, because we are owners of this. We consume a lot of energy. We'll consume even more energy with AI. So what is our responsibility, and how do you change the different energy mix that we have? And I think this is work in progress. I'm proud of, driving, the PV as a source of revenue into the classical mix that we have, because I do believe that our biggest challenge in AI, data center in Nigeria and elsewhere, is what I call sustainable digitalization. If we don't think of that one, we will have a problem as corporate citizens, and I think as an industry. And this is something we need to take care of. Yes, we have gas turbines, we have a lot of gensets, we have all that stuff, but we have to do more, because we cannot have an AI growth, just continue consuming up to 40 to 50 kW per rack, and just continue to have, gensets and gas turbines. There has to be more from us. So I think that's one challenge and one take I have on AI as such. Then I think also from a user perspective, what does it mean when AI now explodes elsewhere? What is our role? Are we just going to be a cloud or data exporter to the great owners of how to use the AI? It's more of a philosophical question. I don't have an answer to it. But what role do we play as actually providing a lot of input to large AI owners? And the fourth leg around AI is what from a data center perspective, think is going to happen. A couple years ahead of us, I think we're going to have a lot of edge cloud centers. It's taking place all over the world. We'll have smaller locations, hopefully, in a lot of different states in Nigeria. That would be fantastic, because that meant that the cloud uptake has happened, AI happened, and we have a need to have a low latency presence in a lot of different states. And then maybe think outside the box. I mean, we also talk a lot about importance of latency, edge, and all that stuff. But a lot of these large, the large LLMs, where you essentially do the learning modules as such, they don't necessarily require a low latency. They can essentially stand working anywhere. So imagine if this continent could be host to those data centers that do the learning modules Then we don't need that kind of discussion about latency. Can we, as a continent, as a country, provide the locations to do that? Because in Europe, those locations are now being challenged for environmental, for energy reasons, and ESG reasons. Is that an opportunity? Is it a threat? I don't know, but I can imagine that would be a solution if we can also have an answer, a credible answer, to the energy consumption of those remote locations of, AI-driven data centers. So, it's a lot of debate around it. Right now, we dig where we stand. We're ready to take care of it when it comes. I'm fully supportive and invested in the capability to take care of it. And we will go along with evolution. And we were super happy to see this taking place. Edge, back-end, learning modules, data centers taking place, and all of us using a different way for the benefit of all of us and this nation. Thanks.
Shayo, is the time now, or is it still futures for AI?
Well, I would say it's a gradual process. There's a phase to it. In terms of where we are, I would say as a country and as a company. As a company, I think for all of us, our key goal is to continue to provide the platform, right, required to drive innovation, which is building the infrastructure. We on our own, we're building more infrastructure. We're increasing the capacity of the facilities we have so that we can build more megawatts that are required to power those AI GPUs and CPUs, which are quite huge, just like Jens just mentioned. If I go back in time, I remember the average rack density was about 3 kilowatts. That's what you see from most enterprise customers, except maybe the big hyperscalers coming with like 7 kilowatts per rack, and then you'd be like, this is huge. How do I manage the power and the cooling efficiency? Because maybe your design was based on 3 kilowatts average power density. We're at 40 kilowatts per rack for some of those devices, and based on projection, we will get to 200 kilowatts per rack, right? So as private companies, I think we're doing all that we can do, but I still feel there's a limit to it, because I think we would get to a point where if we don't have the government coming in to support these initiatives and readiness, we will struggle, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the growth trajectory for most data centers that has to become AI ready, the rate of growth is astronomical. It's like with a click of finger, you've run out of capacity. Now, how do we, as data center companies, manage that in our environment today? We know the state of our national power infrastructure in terms of what we get from the grid. I can tell you for some cities, that's like the capacity of just one data center, right? Or fewer data centers in a cluster. Now, what that means is we need alternative source of power that will help us power these facilities we're building so that we will be AI ready or cloud ready for those high hyperscale requirements that we expect to see. What about the ease of expansion? Ease of expansion in terms of land bank, you have to buy land, the process of title registration and all that process. In our environment, it takes time, right? Because of our processes around all of this. So when you think of all that you need to do, the average time that it takes to build that kind of facility in Lagos, I can tell you is more than ×2 or ×3 of the average time you need to build those kind of facilities. So what is the impact in terms of how quick we can respond to those demands? So what I think will happen is at some point, we might still continue to rely on some of those AI resources in those regions, using the cloud interconnection between what we have here and what we have there. But I think it's something that all of us will need to continue to deliberate on and think of, in terms of how do we bring the stakeholders together to support. Well, we can't do everything, right? We can try to build our business model, try to get alternative source of power, but then there's a whole lot of ecosystem behind that enable all those things to happen. And I think until we start drilling down into those specific and driving what needs to happen, I think we would get there. We are in terms of the initial uptake, but our ability to scale faster as expected will be challenged.
Indeed, indeed. So show him some more love. I know we are time constrained because some of us have other engagements to get to, so we're going to abbreviate a little bit. But to round up on AI and to buttress some of these elements, if you look at the time it took the world to adopt electricity, and you take the time it took the world to adopt internet, right, you see a massive compression, right? Now you fast forward to AI, there's even a further compression on the adoption curve. So if in your vocabulary ChatGPT is not there, please add it, visit it, use it, experience it beyond what we know as search today. There's other AI tools available that's commonly accessible by all, right? So it's going to change the way we do business, the way businesses optimize their operations and get insight. It will change the way governments operate. So there's the new arms race, is really around AI. That's why from Silicon Valley to every technology capital of the world, AI is the rage, including Lagos. There's an AI community right here in Lagos. Another tidbit I will give you is, Ashayo talked about energy density on a per rack basis. Most of you that have actually rolled up sleeves and deployed racks, right, and cabled power to it, understand what he's talking about. Now imagine having an equivalent of 30 typical houses in Lagos, all put in one single rack. That's what he's talking about. And think about it this way. When you open your computer, these computers you have a CPU in it. If you play games, there's a GPU in it to do floating point arithmetics. That's what AI uses, in addition to the CPU, in addition to massive storage. Imagine that today, one of those GPUs is at 1 kilowatt memory consumption, and you need a cluster of them in a 4U enclosure, tens of these, to be able to power the next generation AI. So it sounds daunting, but I believe that my colleagues around this table are working on it. At CASI, we focused on it. So as we deliver our data centers, to wrap it up, the supply ecosystem is emerging stronger. We are talking to each other more often. We are thinking about the challenges that we're going to speak to quite a bit. And there's a role for government policies to play in accelerating the cloud adoption, in accelerating AI presence locally here, in making sure that the data that we will use resides here. So, my dear friends and colleagues, let's touch on the challenge, and we're not going to go one at a time because they're all together. From sustainable and scalable power availability, we've all touched on it, right? To Naira, that's the big elephant in the room. We cannot avoid it. It impacts what we do. A good chunk of what we use to build our facilities come from abroad. They tend to be dollar or euro denominated. So it impacts the way we build. And One more element to add, and I will let you speak freely to those, is the gap in human capital, the capacity, the talent level. So please take any one of these and talk to us about it, because as an ecosystem, we have to stand as one in going after these challenges.
Okay, briefly, I'll say to the entire room, and in every little way you contribute to the entire ecosystem, or whether you're building data centers, you had better be scale ready, which links out through to AI, or you'll be obsolete by the time you go live. And it takes time to recover. So that's the message, you be scale ready or you'll be obsolete. And that means looking at all of these challenges and currency and so on, but we could be another hour talking about those challenges. We face up to them as an industry and figure out just how we can be scale ready and not be obsolete.
Every day we look through challenges, correct? That's part of the ecosystem we talk about. And one is very key, that is the human capital. And that need to be really, really addressed at the earliest. We call as that Japa syndrome, correct? So we need to reverse it, because we need to really reverse it and see that how best we can support the industry and come together. Because if you don't do that, nobody else is going to do this. And we 5 or another 10 sitting here and talking, this is not going to help. People on the other side need to come this side. That we really need to look at it, because if we are not doing that, let it be data center, let it be any industry, it will fade out. So let's focus on that, how to build it from the grassroots level, maybe from the university or even maybe from the junior high secondary. Let's start building that. Let's start putting it together. Whatever we can contribute, let's contribute towards that.
Yeah, so my take on, I heard FX, I heard NIDA, and I started to sweat here. It's there's no around it. All of us in this sector are exposed to this financial reality. But there's a silver lining to our industry as well. That is, this industry goes forward towards growth. All growth fundamentals are in the right place. It could take X number of months, years, whatever, but all growth fundamentals are pointing in the right direction. Now, so growth fundamentals are good, but we do have as a sector a business case problem. And that is an essential problem that will last for some time, until what I call, in the data center business, we talk about N+2, which essentially means you have certain redundant resiliency. And I believe that we as a sector are exposed to an N+2 situation in Nigeria. What I mean with that is that N is the date, the month of the year, where the market, our investors, our cloud investors, content providers, perceive Nigeria and the Naira to be stable. When there's predictability of what's happening in our country, that's the time people started thinking and working on the business cases, whatever that Naira rate is. N+2 for me means that if next month is stable, it's going to take the market, the whole ecosystem, probably 2 more months to actually start investing and pushing these growth fundamentals even further. And I will not say in this audience whether this is 2 months or 2 years or whatever it is, but there is always a bit latency. And I think Naira is a bit of a bump in the road right now. We will overcome it, and people will support us in that journey, because the growth fundamentals are the right one, they're a proper one, and they're good for all of us in this room. And that's a good message. When it comes to people capability, human capability, I'm a big supporter of that we have what it takes. And if we don't have what it takes, we have always been able here to develop that capability. This is a very CapEx-intensive business. It's not always very people-intensive business, but it is a competence-intensive business. And so far, I think Rack Center stands in the front line of having that capability together with my peers, because I think all of us have proven on this scenery that we can deliver the utmost service to our customers with the skill set that we have on the ground. And we will, as a team, continue that journey. So I'm very optimistic on both parameters.
Shayo.
Yeah. So I'll focus on the human capacity aspect of it, because when you talk to the young folks jackpine, right, you realize there's no single direction in terms of where they jackpot to. Some you hear they're going to Poland, going to Australia, going to Canada, going to US, going to UK. So, I mean, what that says is the fact that maybe we're not very competitive in terms of our remuneration. And based on the impact of the currency and all of that, the sector and the space we play in is highly competitive, and the skill set also highly valuable, right? If you're a data center skilled engineer, especially on the core operational, you can get job anywhere. So I think for us to reverse that, because actually it's a challenge, while you have to keep retraining those core skills that you need to continue to keep your facility running, because you don't want inexperienced engineers to go touch something and just shut down the whole system. You know, how do you explain that to your customers, right? So it's highly skilled, but we need to keep these people. I think that's where government also needs to come in, because the reason why maybe today we're not as competitive as the other markets to keep the staff is because of the demand side of it, right? We're putting a lot of investment on the supply side, but do we have enough on the demand side to break even quickly, and also compensate the staff well enough that they don't have to think of any other country? Because if you hear some of the countries, they even jackpot to you, be like, but I think Nigeria is better than this country. We're like, no, it's the money they're paying me, right? And that's the reality. So and that's why I feel in terms of policy that we need to put in place, because the workloads of Nigerian companies I think they're scattered in different parts of the world. And that's why we're exporting our talents to go and work in those places and support those infrastructure. But I think we have those policies that help us to aggregate them and bring them back. Then we'll have increase on the demand side, and then we will break even. Then we will build bigger facilities, and then we'll pay good salary.
Thank you so much, Shayo. Let me see if I can summarize a little bit. In terms of the trend, right, we acknowledge that the cloud is here, the crowd will grow, and we are ready for the public cloud to join private cloud here in Nigeria. All the enabling factors are all lining up. Connectivity is lining up. We need more, but the base level is here. But we agree on what I call P3. So what is P3? One is people. Upscaling our people, building capacity. We agree on power. Not just any power, but reliable and sustainable power. We're all working on it. And then we need help on policy. And as a community, we need to begin advocacy around the set of policies that will uplift this sector. Because when cloud touches down on a region, you know, it doesn't just rain, it makes everything grow. And sorry about that, I needed to add that, but I will give each one of us a closing remark, and then we'll wrap it up. I had promised that we will take questions. We will stay behind and actually answer questions, but I need to start getting some of our panel members on the road to their meetings. So, Tunde, let's lead off with you on closing comments.
I think I did my closing comments last time. We've just really got to be ready for scale.
What is the closing comment? We all did the part of it, correct, Johnson? You know, we touch-based everything, more or less. But only one comment. If you look at all these people, we have 5 men sitting here. Can we just look around it for the next, the peering forum and, have a gender equality coming here? Huh? Please, let's look at
Say
that.
it again.
I am representing one.
I will take that. I'll respond to that. Well, let me respond immediately. When I showed up, by the way, and it's all male around the table here, and it's what our industry is suffering from, by the way. And we need to be quite vocal, acknowledge it up front, and work tirelessly to make sure that we do not just recruit to balance gender, but I applaud us that we have Shayo on the table here, but we need youth because we've been at this a long time. And when I look around, there's not enough of us getting ready to take over from us. So we absolutely need diversity, and more importantly, we need inclusive, attitude to our industry. That's a different panel, but that's a very important panel. Please, let's keep going. Lars?
Well, you stole my thunder. That was a very good conclusion. What to say now, okay? What to say now? I think that, apart from being here, when you see all of us, we're all competitors. We all attain the same market. We all kind of invested for the same good reasons, I would say. My competitor's success will eventually become my success, and my operational performance will be your success. And I think as an industry representing all data center here, let me take the opportunity to do that. I think we are betting massive investments into this industry. We're betting massive amount of millions of US dollars, and for the right reasons. And that's a very good thing, and I think you all in this room and ourselves should feel very proud of that, because we take this big investment for the right reason, and we're gonna push through. Okay, and we're doing that with local capability. I do think there is an opportunity for different session to discuss the whole sustainability aspect of it, and also what you mentioned, Johnson, the inclusion, the gender. I think those two topics are relevant for the industry. They are. So thanks for coming today. That's my take on everything. Thanks.
All right. Just to touch on the gender part, I know I try to mention it, but I'm here representing Ms. Funke Okbeke, my boss, and I hope I did justice to the female community. So, representing her, she's my boss, she trained me. So to round it up, I think there's an enormous opportunity in what we do. And when you look at the impact of what we do, it's significant in terms of growth that it propels for any economy. So what I would just say as a closing remark is, we are part of the people that is changing the landscape. We are part of the people that have the responsibility to change the landscape of our country. It will be challenged, as we have seen, and everything we have said, but if we keep talking about it, keep at it, I think we will address the issue. When you look at where we started and where we are, there's been significant growth. Over the last 10 years, Nigeria is doing almost 100 megawatts of combined data center capacity. 10 years ago, most facilities are less than 1 megawatt, right? If you have 1 megawatt, you'll be screaming. So we're almost like 100 times in terms of capacity. So it tells us there's enormous potential if we continue to work together. And I think if we come back here 10 years from now, I'm sure we'll be like 1 gigawatt of data center capacity. Thank you.
So let's bring this phase to closure, and let me let my colleague, I know he's delayed his session in VI, 30 minutes. So, Tunde, thank you so much. And thanks for your presence and your contribution. Actually, let's stand up and see if we have questions from the audience. Do we have microphone for the gentleman over there? If not, you can have my microphone. And actually, let's start with the lady. Let's rebalance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much, Doctor, for mentioning that your panel was not gender inclusive. We love men like you that notice. So where am I going to now? Thank God you mentioned AI. Thank God my Oga from Google is from here, Mr. Ajao. So presently, right now, apart from, I'm a cloud security engineer, that's what I do, but I volunteer in tech spaces. So there's this women group called Women Tech Makers by Google. And right now, what we're doing is that we're educating teachers and students on AI. So Google DeepMind is partnering with Raspberry Pi to take AI to classrooms. Actually, my own session is starting on Monday. So I thank God for people like Rack who are AI ready. So apart from saying this, I'm also pitching to these beautiful CEOs that we are coming for sponsorships from you. So that is that's what I want to say. So we were talking about capacity building. So that's something that Google is doing through DeepMind and Raspberry Pi. So we'll we'll get your support as I come to you and I take your call cards. Thank you.
Okay. Let me actually add to it. There are a lot of things going on in Lagos. We just need to bring them out. I think Lagos AI communities should be a collaborator with you.
We're doing all over sub-Saharan Africa. So all over sub-Saharan Africa, sisters.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
Yes.
It's to amplify locally, to feel that local effect.
We were talking about, AI being, so we're taking it down to secondary schools, pupils between 11 and 14, and teachers as well. I'm actually organizing that and a hackathon. So you're learning for learning's sake. What are you doing with the learning? So that's something.
Talk to all of us
Yes,
from a CASI standpoint. We do have AI engine already deployed.
Okay.
So we are looking for people to actually exercise it in our foundry.
Yes, don't worry, I'll come and visit.
So you're welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Adeyemi from Excel, Nigeria. On AI, mostly there are two sides of it. The training of the model and the inferencing, right? The training side of it, I don't see us doing that in recent or even near term because of what is required in terms of not only the infrastructure, even the capex involved and all that. And mostly they are being done by all these hyperscalers. The inferencing side, which is more or less demanding, what can we do to engage the hyperscalers to ensure that they start looking for a way to bring them down? Because at that point in time, it will make the adoption easier, and apart from easier, it will reduce the latency, because right now, everything you want to do now, you have to do it on a public cloud back to maybe US or in Europe. And the latency sometimes does not support some of the applications that you might likely want to run, because you need some low latency depending on the kind of application you are building. So that's number one. Number two is on the edge computing, edge DCs. We have seen the rollout of the 5G network by the two mobile operators, and there are some low latency IoT applications being developed worldwide. However, if we If all the data centers sitting down in Lagos and you want to be monitoring a pipeline that is in Bayelsa that needs a low latency service, right? That might constitute a challenge. Or maybe you are doing some NGO program work in Maiduguri and the data center is sitting in Nigeria too, in Lagos. That will constitute part of the challenge. So is there any roadmap with the DC operators to have all these smart DC moving closer to some of our locations?
Thank you so much for that question. Let me turn it over to my colleagues. Please don't chime in all at once. Go ahead.
I think I heard a second question, and that was about Edge Cloud. You talked about 5G. The question is about our take on that. Correct? I didn't hear the full question. I heard 5G and I heard Edge Cloud.
His comment is that we're not ready for the generative models. Inference is more appropriate, but more importantly, on the edge, can we distribute to the edge to be able to handle some of the low latency, extreme low latency requirements? Example, pipeline monitoring. Did I capture it right?
Shall I take a stab at it? Okay. I mean, I like the whole idea by the 5G in that because that eventually will drive a lot of the edge capability that we need to have at a smaller scale than our 12 megawatt facility we drive now. So the question is, when will 5G be mature actually to have that demand? If I look at really the use case of 5G, it's still very much about two areas. It's an enterprise-wide usage. That's why you develop 5G. Number two is fixed wireless access, FWA usage of 5G. That's where the big case is going to come. The enterprise sector is still figuring out, I would say, even in the United States and Europe, where's the business case for the consumer. So if I say, yes, it will come, and when it will come here, driven by 5G, we, the sector, will be ready. I'm sure about that one. I do believe, though, that's a couple years out. I deployed actually 4G for Smile up here 2013-14. At that time, our business case, our plan was that every Nigerian would have a 4G-enabled connection, mobile broadband, by end 2019-20. It didn't really happen. We still kind of need to work on that one. So 5G, enterprise-wide applications taking the place, driving edge cloud, is a couple years out. There's one thing, though, that I find very interesting in the sector, though, that will happen later on here, is that 5G is now also opening up through Vonage and Google and AWS, I think it is, to create applications on top of the network capability. And this is actually the first time you're going to see this happening on a wireless infrastructure. And I actually believe that that can drive further growth in the market, particularly in Lagos, which is enterprise-driven. So I hope to see that development coming on the 5G to make sure that all that creativity that we can find in Nigeria starts to work on top of that network capability and create slice functions, pipeline capability, whatever it is, okay? That would be super good because then you will end up with edge cloud necessities, not only capabilities. So long answer to that one. I hope I responded to you, though.
Chris?
Theoretically, if you look at that, we need number of states times 2. This is theoretically on paper, correct? That is the data centers we need, one primary and one secondary. But if you think on the business side, how viable is that? Correct. So let's look at the business viability of this. But speaking on to that aspect, can we have an edge into some of those locations? Of course, it is quite possible. There comes the collaboration part of it. Okay. It doesn't need that, all of us need to go and build data centers there. There are existing facilities available there some other way. You may not get a tier 4 standard or a tier 3 standard facility there, but we can put power, we can put one rack, we can have an internet connectivity. Now, if that is what we are looking at, it is quite possible in many of those states. Those kind of infrastructures are readily available. and even some minor networks are also available. It's a thought process. For that, some of the industry players are working together to put some of those infrastructure, what you just mentioned, but it is over a period of time. I think the data center part, whether it is the primary ones or the edge ones, actually it is moving out of Lagos nowadays. So many projects are coming out.
Shayo, any thoughts?
So, I think they've answered the question. Just to put it in, just summary. There's a baby step, right, to every innovation. So I think that's the excitement of building all this infrastructure and what we expect to see in the future, because we have to deal with the fundamentals. And we hope that other ecosystem players who are seeing what we're doing will now start tapping into it to say, okay, now Nigeria is ready, we can come bring in this solution, work with the likes of Airtel, Glo, and then develop it further. They can use your existing sites, some of it in country, see what upgrades are required. And I think that's how we take it from there. Just like when we didn't even have internet access in Nigeria. Nobody can talk about Konga or Juma placing order from their bedroom, right? But when we start developing the internet ecosystem, that's when e-commerce started thriving. So I see it in that light, and that's why when the investment comes in, all these other plays starts happening.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. The one retort is not all language models are very large. So if we can begin to play with the smaller ones that can fit into smaller GPU memory footprint, like V100, A100 type NVIDIA GPUs, we can begin to crawl as a nation. If we forfeit at this point any generative work, we defer the learning. We defer training of our own human capacity, human capital. So that's the only retort I will have. My colleagues have said everything on inference as well as on edge, compute and storage. Any other questions? Do we have microphone?
So I actually have a question, which is actually centered on the closing statement you guys made about human capital, actually. So my question is this, and it's actually specifically to the guy from Equinix, because you actually made a statement that actually caught my attention in terms of brain drain in Nigeria, because you have a lot of folks right now. I would say part of the reasons why people are actually leaving and the intelligent ones are actually leaving, it's not just because of the financial aspect. Yes, that's one aspect, but I don't really think that's the real reason. Because I could say for myself, for instance, if I should relocate out of Nigeria today, I'm not going to be relocating because of money. So part of the reasons why I think the intelligent folks are actually leaving is because of lack of innovations that we have in our workplaces. So you come to work every day, you're doing the same thing, you're doing the same kind of job, the same kind of instructions every day. So my question goes to you. What are the initiatives that are being put in place by data center companies to actually educate and train their staffs? Because yes, you could be doing it internally, but it needs to be something that is known to the public so that everybody can easily engage in it and say, okay, fine, this is what this company is actually doing, just like the likes of Google, Microsoft, and the like. So what are these local data center companies that are actually playing in this space, what are they doing to actually enhance the growth and innovation of the workplaces? So that way, if it is known, I'll tell you, people won't have to leave to go to places like the UK, Canada, or the United States to actually find these things. They will find them within. So I just want to know what are those initiatives, and if it is something that can be known to everyone so that everybody can actually participate and also bring in others that can actually learn from it and also improve as well. So that's my question.
Can I lead off on this one? This is extremely personal to me. When we started CASI, we started CASI Academy. We slowed down last year, and that was my biggest regret, that we did not continue the cohorts. We're in the middle of 30-person cohort. And to operate large-scale data centers, you need the people here. You know, and it's not just teaching mechanical, electrical, it's also teaching network DevOps. It's also teaching other elements of operations. It's also teaching better ways of developing products. Because the complexity that we highlighted here is quite enormous. And we need to check all of them off. You know, if public cloud demands 4 to 5 nines, right? It's not 4 to 5 nines on power alone, on electricity alone, on cooling alone. The network is involved. You know, security is involved. All those are in the SLAs. So you train your security staff and you teach them what it means to run a data center. You know, so, and I know that One started an academy as well as each and every one of us up here. I think it's an exciting time to be in Nigeria. It really is. Because if you're here before the cloud region arrives and you're part of growing that scale, right, both in complexity as well as capacity availability, right, you will look back and say, yeah, I was part of that. I've been fortunate to have written about 3 tons in global capacity building in various elements, networks being one of those. You know, trading floors being one of those. And I tell you, that's what I look back at and celebrate. So I agree with you. It's not necessarily the money because your life is centered here. How can we collectively make it challenging?
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer. Just to put things into perspective, right? Even in developed market, right? People still leave their jobs. They still move from one data center company to another, right? It's constant. But when you look at the type of operation that data center companies undergo, you need minimal disruption, especially for critical staffs that run the facility. Now, when you listen to some of the people that have the skills already, right, it's not out of lack of innovation, right, because you're working in a data center company, right? There's so much to learn, so much to do, right, in terms of the workforce. So your mind is busier there, thinking of the next technology to come with. I mentioned here that at some point, the focus was, oh, we need to build a 3 kilowatt facility. But then when you start hearing about new technologies coming in and you're thinking, oh, my facility cannot take this type of workload, then you start to innovate. You start to think, oh, how do I evolve my facility? How do I change my cooling system, for example, like liquid cooling, that will be able to cool this massive heat coming in from this server. So there's a lot of innovation in that space, but for me, it's just putting things into context to say, if we solve that part of the problem, at least it will reduce the level of disruption that we see. It's not going to eliminate it, right? Because even within the data centers company in the country, you still see staff trying to move across companies because they want better pay, better paycheck at the end of the day, which happens in every sector. Now, in terms of what we do as a company, like he just mentioned, we had an academy where we have a yearly cohort bringing young graduates. They go through this intensive program, you know, of onboarding, training, and then we kind of move them across function, train them, and that's how we develop the skills in-house. And we start training them. And usually we advertise. Maybe we're not as big as Google or the likes of Meta that can take more people than what we can take. But I think we do that. And I would not want to use anybody as an example. I would like to use myself as an example. I've been in this company for more than 13 years, right? Going to 14 years. And everything I'm saying here, everything I've learned is on the job. It's in the company, right? So I didn't have to, maybe I went to some trainings, but I can tell you there's so much we can do. A lot of people might want to leave, right, for different reasons. You can't stop people from their life choices. But I think the focus should be, let's provide the options, right? Let's make it easy. So let it not be you're living because of paycheck, right? Let it be that maybe you need to become something else that is not available, right? So it's your personal decision. But the point still remains that the kind of operation that we run is highly critical, highly intensive, and you need to keep the workforce. You need highly skilled people who will sit and help you manage this facility.
Well, thank you. We'll take one last question. He raised, my friend, he raised his hand. Sorry, we'll take one last.
My question is in relation to what the other person have raised. There are people that move or migrate because of they are not getting what they want or what they aspire to be in the tech community. An issue was raised about a kind of unequal growth between the south and the north. I am from the north. I have to travel 1,000 kilometers to be here, to be in this kind of gathering so that I can learn and interact with experts. So companies doesn't see that part of their country as lucrative for business. I can't just go now to Ukraine to say that I'm going to build a data center because it's not feasible, it's not business-wise. So that's the reason why some businesses are not going to that aspect. So a challenge is raised. So what can we expect to be the future trend that will give us opportunity from that sector, people like us that want to grow, to have the desired growth and what really matters to us? Thank you.
That's a very good closing question. Thanks a lot for bringing it up. Krish, can you take a swing at it?
You know, when we look at the real side of it, you know, it is not that the companies are not looking. They are not looking the distances, correct? They are looking for the talents. So you need to come into the limelight. That is what it is all about. In my take, correct? You need to be visualized. People need to see you at least virtually what you are doing, or you need to be seen to us, or all of us, correct? So that's what it makes. It is not the nowadays. It is not the distance. Now it is the way of we communicate to each other. You need to be present in the communities. You need to be present everywhere because it's a need, correct? So that's what my perspective is, that, you know, you need to get involved. So now you are here. We know you. I can remember your face. So once you share your details with me, I know where, you know, what fitments, how we can work around it. And like you, there are millions, not you alone. There are millions, correct? And there are so many companies. Of course, now you met for 5 of us, 5 different companies, and more are in this place, and more are coming in. So opportunities are always there, but you need to be on the limelight. That's my take.
I would like to add to it, and also I would like to congratulate you and thank you for coming. Not easy, it takes a lot coming down to be part of this. Just to put things in perspective, this community, and also credit to the community, the NGPIF and the NGNOC for putting this together, and I think is an offshoot of what they have seen happening in other countries, and even from an African standpoint, the AFPIF, and other Pairing and Interconnection Global Forum. So it took fewer operators in Nigeria who used to travel abroad to attend this event, coming together and seeing the value. And then the questions start coming up, how do we bring this back home? How do we replicate it in Nigeria? And that's why I'm giving the credit to the team that started the Interconnect and Pairing Forum in Nigeria. Please, a round of applause for them. And that's why we're all seated here having this discussion. And now, from the north, you've been able to be part of it in Nigeria. So what that means is we now need another community to start thinking, how do we do something in that region and start creating the community? And you might become the advocate, right? You've seen it. You can try to replicate it. And maybe next year, you might be 10 of you that will be here, right? And that's how it continues to grow. Because my view is sometimes I say technology is not fair, right? Because there are certain things that are common sense, which you just feel, I'll round up here. So certain things that are just common sense, you just feel like, it's in Lagos, so it should be in Kano, it should be here, but it's just not like that, right? There's a transition to it, there's an ecosystem built to it and all that. So I think you come in here, and also the MD of Browse Point, also great one, and hope to see more of you next year, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was supposed to be our last question. Bear with me, because the gentleman that came up came all the way from Ghana. And can you then close us out? And last, we'll take your question.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francis Oko. I work for PCCW Console Connect. And I think on a very more positive note, I want us to give a round of applause to this gentleman on this table. And why I'm saying it is that for some of us who have been in the industry in Nigeria, spanning maybe last 20, 25 years, we've seen an amazing transformation in what you guys are doing. We can only encourage you to do more. Having said that, I've crisscrossed, the length and breadth of West and Central Africa. What I have seen here in Nigeria in the last couple of years, nobody is near where you guys are or where we are. This is for true. For us, as a business, we've been working with a lot of you because we see you as a very critical partner in our digitization efforts in a bid to move a lot of enterprises to the workload into the cloud. And I hear somebody mention something very interesting in terms of what we are doing or what you guys are doing to ensure that we have some local clouds residency in our country, obviously because of data sovereignty. So this is where we are working with guys. I know for now we are working a lot of you guys, but we are saying that for those who are not there, we are coming to your data center. We are going to do business with you in a large scale. My final question to them, probably an advice, is we know that one of the biggest challenge you guys are facing, which a lot of businesses are facing, has to do with the power. And if I look at the data center business model, you are selling rack spaces and power, basically. Now, what are you going to do or what are you doing? We want to encourage you to look at the green power. And also, we want to also encourage you, beyond setting all the infrastructure in Lagos, can you also look at the tier 2 cities in Nigeria so that everybody gets a share advantage of your services? Thank you very much.
So maybe I'm going to take a stab at the last question, which I understand, what can we do to make sure we have a more energy-focused and better energy consumption data center? Would that be correct? Okay. I mean, to scan for new energy sources is not just an opportunistic thing. It is not. It's actually the essence of what we're trying to do at Rack Center, okay? It is essence. And that is not just because you can probably find, the US dollar per kilowatt price slightly lower. We need as a company to actually broaden our energy base. Yes, we have the gas turbines, we have the gensets, but we're looking into a couple of things now, and that's coming back to what I always said, sustainable digitalization. Those two words has to come together, and that's something that we at RAC Center stand for fully, all 65 of us in the company. What can we do? Okay, the easiest one, of course, you throw a bit of a PV on top of the buildings, very big, and that gives you a marginal contribution of a couple of percentages. That's a good first step. The second one is what I call space to energy. And space to energy means that I try to find the location either around my block or elsewhere where I can actually extract from larger PV plants 50 to 60% of my power consumption and back it up with my mission critical power, which is now, it could be gas turbines with a lower footprint compared to gensets, or it could be other locations. I mean, imagine if we could, in Lagos, such a sizable city, extract what I call methane gas. We all have gas turbines around. That's where we power up the DCs. Imagine if you could start to extract from certain locations, even, waste to energy. Then you have created what I call a circular economy. Never tried before in Nigeria, never tried in Western Africa, but that would be a very cool thing for the industry. It would be a very good thing for Lagos, and I think it would be good for our data industry. So there's a lot of stuff there. So we need to do it. We need to do this journey. Thanks.
All right, we'll bring this to close. I think, where's Joshua? I always call him the man that has two names, just like JJ. I really want to thank you and the team, and more importantly, Ben. Thanks a lot. Thank you to the panel, to the panelists that we have. By the way, we did not talk until we got here, before we got on this stage. So you're hearing it directly from the panelists, from the experts. So thank you so much. Ben, over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, panelists. That was a great discussion. Looking forward to continuing more.